All is not wonderful, wonderful.
What do you mean?
It's not all wonderful, wonderful like the song that everybody just heard says.
Why?
Because, well, first off, you have what's going on in the world right now.
Okay.
Continuing, right? That hasn't changed.
All right.
Last week, you have somebody just randomly walking up to Rick Moranis and punching him on the street in New York.
Yeah, that's not cool.
Just random, for no reason, as far as we know, right? And this past week, Eddie Van Halen died. So, no, not all is right in the world.
Aw, you okay?
I'm actually not.
You
Well, I
hanging
mean,
there, buddy?
I'm okay, but it's one of those. This one, obviously, people pass away all the time, but this one really, this one sucks, like big time. And this is coming from somebody that was involved in pro wrestling and had a lot of close friends pass away and everything, and you know, contemporaries and colleagues and that kind of stuff. This one really sucked because this was like, for me, you know me, my two big passions, pro wrestling and music. And music was my first real passion because I you know, MTV came out when I was, you know, a little kid, and Eddie Van Halen was like Van Halen the band, and obviously Eddie is who they were named after, himself and his brother, who were the drummer. And yeah, this one just sucks. It just really sucks. I text my brother, actually is the one that texted me the news because I haven't been on social media or anything like that, and I was like, "What? Are you serious?" And I'll actually quickly, just real quick, I'll tell you what he told me because
How about we start, like, for the people new to listening, why don't we do our intro
Oh yeah,
and tell
that's
people
right. I'm
who
sorry.
we are?
Yeah, see, this is how much this has thrown me off. Welcome to the Homewrecker Podcast, everybody. Thank you for reminding me because I completely, you know.
I'm like, you're
spaced
just
it
going
there.
to keep going, aren't you?
Yeah, I was just going to keep going. So thank you for reeling me in there. Apologies to the listeners. Welcome to the Homewrecker Podcast. I am the Golden Greek Alex Arion, joined as always by my beautiful, lovely, gorgeous, amazing trophy wife, Monique.
Yes. So we're starting on a negative note. Awesome.
I don't want to be negative. I kind of want to just remember how awesome Eddie Van Halen was.
Okay, so I just have to say, anytime it comes to celebrities, a celebrity dies, and I'm like, oh no, I love that person, that's too bad. And you're the one who's like, well, did you know them? They're just a person. You didn't know them personally. And you harp on me about it. And now here you are, just all distraught because Eddie Van Halen died. It's different. Okay, it's different.
My brother texts me, Eddie Van Halen, R.I.P. I said, what? With a bunch of question marks and exclamation marks. I'm like, are you serious? He goes, yep. I go, WTF, that blows. He goes, remember how much we used to listen to Van Halen and how much you talk him up all the time? And I said, yeah, this one hurts. Yeah.
Hang in there, kitten.
I will. I'll hang in there. I'll be all right. But I mean,
Are you sure?
This was like my childhood. And music that I've listened to since childhood. Like, I'm wearing my Van Halen shirt right now. I mean, yeah, this sucks. Anyway.
But you know what's funny too is like here I am here we are, like all these celebrities, you hear these awful things about, the conspiracies about them and these terrible things, and you realize they're just people and they're capable of being horrible. So I'm like, I really kind of don't care anymore because I don't know them. I don't know the good or bad they've done, so I'm not gonna whatever. And it's funny because it's like the tables have turned here, and I'm just like, I liked Van Halen. I like the band, I like the music, and all I can think of is The Office with Ryan when Smokey Robinson died, allegedly, and he's like, oh man, he's pacing around, Smokey Robinson is dead. And I'm like, well, what songs do you sing? Tears of a Clown? And like, that's all he could get. Now, I know you're really a Van Halen fan, but it's just like what popped in my head.
Yeah, no, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I remember the first time I ever listened to Van Halen was on MTV, was the song Jump. So I was a little late to the party, okay, because I think the first album they released in '78. So I was only 1 at the time when they released that album. But yeah, I heard Jump, and Eddie Van Halen played the guitar solo on Michael Jackson's Beat It from the Thriller album, which a lot of people, well, I'm sure a lot of people know. Now, But at the time, it wasn't really publicized at the time. And do you know that he made absolutely no money for that at all? Nothing. Played the guitar
Was it
solo.
like just a favor or something he was doing it?
Well, I guess the story I heard, and it's been documented in multiple places, but I guess Quincy Jones called him on the phone and said, "Hey, Eddie, it's Quincy," and he's like, "Quincy who?" And he goes, "Quincy Jones," and Eddie Van Halen hung up on him because he was like, somebody's pranking him, and he calls him back and says, "No, it's Quincy. This is really Quincy Jones," and so he asked him if he'd come down and record a solo for the Michael Jackson album. And Eddie's like, "Yeah, all right, sure, whatever, no problem." And he came down and he just recorded the solo, but never signed anything. He just kind of did it as a favor. And goes on to be I think it still is the biggest selling album of all time. He didn't get a dime for it.
You think like they do something? I don't know.
Huh, whatever. I mean, he did it as a favor, so. And I guess the famous story, I think I read this in a book. David Lee Roth came in after first hearing Beat It on the radio and didn't know that Eddie went and did that favor and went to the studio and recorded that. And came in all just angry and just being like, "Hey, I can't believe it, man. Somebody's ripping off your guitar style, man, on the Michael Jackson song. He sounds just like you, and somebody's ripping you off, man. It's BS, it's BS. And Eddie's like, "Well, actually, no, that's me." And so David Lee Roth said, "Oh, well, how much you get for it?" "Well, nothing. Didn't get anything. Just did it as a favor."
So I've been, in that case, I'll shut my mouth now.
So, yeah, it was just kind of a fun story. I actually just read that recently, and I think it was I can't remember the name of the book now. See, years of getting hit in the head.
Wrestler brain.
Yeah. But, yeah, anyway. So rest in peace, Eddie Van Halen. Thank you for the music and all the memories. For sure, as I'm destroying my microphone and being a complete goof right now. I apologize.
All right.
So, this week...
Well, before we get into that, speaking of death,
yes,
I just want to bring something up because something happened last night. And I've talked about this kind of stuff. I think I've mentioned it before, but I just want to bring it up again. I came across a dying honeybee last night. And at first I was trying to figure out what was wrong with her. And she wouldn't eat, she wouldn't drink, she was stumbling. What I realized after doing some reading, and if I'm wrong and you know, please educate me, let me know. But the signs, the symptoms she was showing were from poisoning, from pesticides. So what happens is people will buy plants from like gardening centers and they'll be treated with pesticides. Or they'll just spray their own lawn, flowers, weeds with pesticides. And that kills the bees. Not only does it kill the individual bees going to the flowers, it kills their whole hive because they're making honey with that pollen and it's feeding the little babies. It's killing them all. And so this poor little bee, she was like staggering around. She was like kicking out and her tongue was sticking out. And I guess those are signs of poisoning from pesticides. So I just wanted to throw it out there because everyone who listens to us and watches us, you all know I love all creatures. I love bees, and I just want to throw it out there. If you didn't know this already, don't use pesticides. There are organic ways to deal with bugs and plants you don't want. You can use apple cider vinegar, lemon, mint, different things like that. You can pull the weeds, dandelions. In the spring, that's what bees go to. And you're spraying that with weed killer. And then before they die, the bees are going to the dandelions. And they're taking from that. So people don't always think about it. So I just wanted to throw it out there. I'm just really asking everyone, please don't use pesticides on your flowers, on your plants, in your yard. And if you already know this, then tell somebody else. If someone's like, "Oh, I'm going to the local chain hardware and garden center and I'm going to go get some flowers," say, before you go there, find out if they use pesticides on their plants, because a lot of them do. Maybe go to a more local nursery or greenhouse or garden center. So just kind of, I feel like if we all do that little bit, bees are so vital to our ecosystem. So if we all do just that little bit and work with each other, we can make a difference. So I'm just asking everyone, please help the bees.
No pesticides on flowers is what you're asking
Please,
for everyone.
yes.
Okay.
No pesticides.
Why? Let me ask you, I don't know if you know the answer or not, but why do people spray dandelions? I mean, they're so plentiful. Like, why would you spray dandelions?
I personally think a lot of people get in their brain, oh, it's a weed. And if something is identified as a weed, then it's a pain. It's just because I guess they're more invasive. But here's the thing. A lot of these plants have wonderful medicinal benefits. So, like, we have different plants growing. Our yard is filled with quote-unquote weeds, but they grow beautiful flowers, and they all have a lot of wonderful medicinal purposes, they have good value to your health. There's so much you can do with them. So, if you want to, read into what's growing in your yard.
Okay.
Yeah, find out how you can use it.
That was my question, was why would somebody spray a dandelion? It's just a nice looking pretty flower, but you're right, because it gets invasive. All right, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Okay, so no pesticides because...
Please.
All right.
Help the bees. That was so... And I can't mercy kill. Like, I was like, I can't get it. It was like, I did my best to keep it comforted.
Yes, you brought it into our bedroom last night, and what did you put it in, like a little bowl?
It was like this.
You have to tell it. I mean, you went into this whole thing about just tell everybody what you did with the bee.
I ordered something, and I'll share the information later. But I ordered something on Etsy, and I got this beautiful jar. It's like a porcelain kind of like hexagon jar with a honeybee on top, like raised and painted, and inside were jasmine flowers. And so I was trying to find somewhere to keep her comfortable, and I was like, oh, I wonder, and she like went there and she seemed really comfortable with the flowers, so I just had her lay in the flowers where she could go peacefully, and I think she just kind of fell asleep and calmed and passed away. But she wasn't alone.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. So many people are like, this girl is a freaking nut job, but it's just how I am. I do it with a bee. I do it with a person. It's how I am.
Yes, that is how you are. And that's why I love you, though.
Thank you.
That's who you are.
I am who I am.
You is who you is.
Yes.
All right. So, ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay. So.
After I take my sip.
All right. All right. So this week, once again, we're going to be talking more New Hampshire haunted legends.
Yes.
And
allegedly haunted legends.
Yeah. Anybody that listened last week knows
It's like we burst everyone's bubble.
Just kind of, yeah. But like, I was just so skeptical of everything, which I typically am now. Oh, and actually, I'm sorry, real quick. Mm-hmm. For anybody watching, I got the coolest birthday card, and I forgot to mention it last week. I got this from your parents, from my in-laws, and it says, Bigfoot wanted me to wish you a happy birthday. Just kidding, he doesn't believe in you. And then they wrote a nice little message.
I popped when I saw that.
So thank you for the awesome birthday card.
Thank you. Yes.
So yeah, and of course they gave me a check again.
We tell them all the time.
Stop with the
We've
checks.
We've literally
Please.
Almost knocked tables over in restaurants fighting to pay. It's awesome. My parents are great.
Yes, your parents are the best.
They're super cool.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and the card, awesome. So very cool. Thank you so much.
I'm gonna put on my glasses so I can read this time.
All right. So this week we're doing more stories, but
yes.
Unlike last week, I don't know any of these stories, so I'm going to be hearing them for the first time as you tell us.
All right.
So just like our listeners and watchers,
our watchers,
viewers, or we're going to just call them watchers, I'm going to be hearing these for the first time as well. So please, by all means, begin.
So I don't know how many people are familiar with these stories, whether you're from New Hampshire, New England, or just anywhere in the U.S. or anywhere else, any other country. So a lot of these were new to me. Some of them I've kind of heard before, but didn't really know the full story, didn't really look into it. This first story I think is awesome because it has to do with pirates and ghosts and treasure.
You of course would think this is awesome. Oh, buried treasure?
Buried treasure.
Buried treasure.
Yes.
Right. This is
yes.
cool.
And I just want to throw out there too. So not way too long ago, but I think it was this year, I found out that I'm allegedly related to a pirate. And I just thought that was awesome. I'm trying to do more research before I go spouting out stuff, but allegedly related to a French pirate. Woo!
Tremendous.
So Maybe that's why I love pirate history.
It would make sense.
It might. All right, this story is about ocean-born Mary. Mary Wilson was born on a ship heading to America from Ireland. Her Scottish parents, Elizabeth and James Wilson, were trying to escape the violence in Northern Ireland and decided to move to New England. Mary was born on July 28, 1720, and shortly after she was born, pirates boarded the ship she was on with intentions to rob and kill everyone. But the pirate Don Pedro heard the cries of Mary. In a moment of compassion, he decided to spare everyone's life if James and Elizabeth named their daughter after his mother, Mary. They agreed, and Don Pedro gifted Mary with a light green silk cloth to wear on her wedding day. If I'm on a ship and the pirate's like, we're going to kill everyone unless you name your daughter after my mom, that sounds like a no-brainer. Just saying.
Right.
They made the right choice. The legend goes that a tall, red-haired, attractive woman is seen at night walking around her home in Henniker, New Hampshire. The legend claims that Mary married a man named James Wallace, and they produced 4 children, but James died young. Mary moved to Henniker, New Hampshire, where she met the pirate Don Pedro, the one who spared her life. She married him, and some years later, after returning home one day, she found him dead. It was speculated another pirate had killed him in hopes to find buried treasure that he put in his backyard. Now, the reason why it's alleged is because there were rumors that Mary said she'd see him, one night she saw him digging in the back and thought he might be burying his treasure there.
So she saw the ghost? Or
no, she actually allegedly saw him one night digging in the ground and burying treasure.
Okay.
And the story also says Mary and her children buried Don beneath the hearthstone fronting the kitchen fireplace, which Don previously requested he be laid to rest. So before he died, he said he wanted to be buried there. So the story is that this tall, red-headed woman is along the property in Henniker around her house, and she can be spotted around there, and that the home she lived in with Don Pedro is haunted. But here's what's been claimed as truth. Soon after arriving to America, Mary's father died. Her mother quickly remarried James Clark, another Scottish-Irish person. Oh, you're moving my mic. Okay. Mary's family settled in Londonderry, New Hampshire, and this settlement celebrated Mary's birthday every year since because of her, they were still alive. So a lot of the people who got off the ship, they settled in Londonderry. And because she was the reason their lives were spared, they all celebrate her birthday, which is pretty cool.
Sure.
And they also they gave her the nickname Ocean-born Mary because she was born on the ocean.
All right, makes sense.
Mary grew to be tall, well-liked, and let me rephrase that. Mary grew to be a tall, well-liked, red-headed woman who married James Wallace. Her wedding dress adorned the green silk given to her by the pirate. Mary and James had 3 sons and 1 daughter. Mary, James, and their children moved to Henniker. Louis Roy purchased the Ocean-born Mary house in Henniker and claimed it was haunted. He gave ghost tours and would rent shovels to visitors who could dig to find the buried treasure in the backyard. Roy claimed Mary still haunted the home and its grounds, and she would often sit in her rocking chair and rock. Many visitors would come to catch a glimpse of her ghost and would find her rocking chair rocking. So, this guy bought the house. He claimed of ghosts because of the buried treasure legend. He would rent out shovels and tell people, oh, if you find the treasure, you can get a treasure. Now, here's what else I read. Now, I don't know this guy. I'm just saying what I found. Allegedly, it was discovered that what he was saying wasn't really true in terms of the haunting. With the rocking chair, he had a loose floorboard, so like the leg of the rocking chair would be on that loose board, so he'd be on the other side of the room, and he would use his foot to move the board, and that would cause the chair to rock. So the question is this place really haunted? Have other people really witnessed anything, or is it just the claims of the guy who bought the house? I don't know.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Good on Luis Roy, though, for...
I mean, hey, yeah, this guy...
Yeah.
Good on you, buddy. Make some dough.
Don't hate the play, I hate the game.
Right. Yeah, I wonder about the treasure, though. So
here's the thing. There's this legend that she found, and there were many variations of the story in terms of how Dom Pedro, that pirate, entered her life. But according to more historical documents, that was just never true. Some say that he came to New Hampshire searching for her, searching for the little girl that was named after his mother, and they met. Some versions say they fell in love and got married. Some say that she just helped him around the house, like he let her live in his house in Henniker. There's all these different stories, so it's tough to say. I look at it like she was born and brought to Londonderry, New Hampshire, and lived there for a while. They celebrated her. That's not too far from us, so I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. All right. Well, that wasn't like a super scary story. Or
No, it's just a lot of these. Here's the issue. Oh, this place is haunted. Oh, there's ghosts here. And then I read and I do the research, and I'm just like, I don't think it's really haunted. It might be, but I don't know. Just the science comes out like it probably isn't.
Huh. Very interesting. So I have to ask now. I'm looking over at your screen. I'm trying not to read things. I'm trying to listen just as you're speaking. Would you copy and paste this off a website, or did you just take all your research and write this?
I literally had to take all my research and write it out because I couldn't just copy from one place. I had to.
Well, yeah, because that's what I was going to ask you. Are you just taking it from one source, or is this just a
No,
bunch
this
of
is
different
from
places?
multiple sources.
Okay.
So that's why I tried to, because I knew I was going to basically be reading it because it's hard to memorize all these different stories.
Yeah.
So I took all the information and I put it together to write it in a way that I could read from with the information I got. Because I said last week, I'm trying to take everything that is consistent in these stories and take that, and then I talk about variations.
All right.
The next story seems the same across the board, though, and I'm going to explain why.
What do you mean seems the same across the board?
It's pretty much the same story. There's no variations.
Oh, okay. So
it's
anywhere,
all the same story that I
everywhere
can
you've
find.
looked, it's all the same. Okay.
Yes, and I'm going to get into it and explain it.
All right. Great.
This is about the lost city of Franconia, New Hampshire.
There's a lost city of Franconia?
Do you know that there's ghost towns in New Hampshire? Did I talk about this last time?
You mentioned, I can't remember if you mentioned it on the show or not, but I know you talked to me about it in the kitchen. I was like, wow, I want to live in a ghost town.
There's
That'd be awesome.
towns that are literally, there's one in New Hampshire, and I forget the name of it, but it was deserted. I think the last person moved out in the 50s.
And did it get flooded? Is that why?
There was one town that got flooded, and that's why most people left. There was a big mill, and that got destroyed. Houses got destroyed, so a lot of people moved out. But the last residents moved out in the 50s. And I'm just like, I want to go live there.
I want to live there. Yeah,
Yes,
that'd be
let's go.
awesome. Like
Let's
the
go.
only inhabitants of this town.
Yes, you have the whole town.
Hell yeah.
Who cares if it floods every so often?
Sign me up.
We'll put it on stilts. Yeah.
Sign me up.
I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure.
So this is about the lost city of Franconia. Now, this story, I could only find it in a few places, but it claims in the 1850s, settlers came to the area and discovered a rich vein of copper running through the rocky landscape. And pretty soon, the area was just filled with prospectors looking for a quick buck. Along with these new inhabitants came railroad tracks to haul copper down the mountain. There were homes, stores, there was a church, and even a school. But building this village presented challenges. While they were trying to put up some of these homes, workers would return to the houses they were working on, only to find the construction they did the previous day undone. They found foundations being filled in and roofs lifted off, all without a sound being heard. People were really confused about what was going on. They couldn't figure it out, but that didn't stop them from settling there. They moved into the houses that were finished, and the store, school, and churches were all up and running. At this time, the villagers noticed a group of Native Americans watching from the perimeter of the village, and one day a pastor went over to the Native Americans and asked them why they were standing there. The Native Americans explained that the land and the homes the homes the land were built on was sacred ground, and that their ancestors and great chiefs were buried there. The roofs that were torn off the houses and the filled-in foundations were a warning from the great spirits that watched over the burial grounds. If the village wasn't moved a few hundred yards away, something worse would happen. I feel like that's pretty reasonable. People are like, this is our land, it's sacred, it's where we, bury people, move it a couple hundred yards over. I feel like that's very reasonable.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense. I mean...
Do you think they moved?
Of course not.
Of course not. We're talking about the story now.
Of course not.
So, of course, as the story says, the quote-unquote white man didn't listen to such native superstitions and decided to stay put. A decision they would soon come to regret. In August of 1859, a thunderous roar was heard on the mountain and sky above the and the sky above the village turned blood red. Many people from nearby towns around the notch hurried to the village to see what happened and to offer any help they could. What they found shocked them all. The copper mine had collapsed, sending a cloud of copper dust through the village, choking every living thing in it. Smoke still billowed from the chimneys, and the tables were set for dinner. But not a soul was in sight. Those whose bodies weren't found seemed to have disappeared into thin air and never seen again. So basically what they're saying is a lot of people just went missing. They disappeared.
This is how soon after the mine collapsed?
Let me see. So it was
discovered
in 1859. So it just is in the 1850s, so within X amount of years, less than a decade.
So there should have been at least skeletons still there. It wasn't
No, they
so
got
long
up. The mine, no. They settled there. They were told don't build, and some years later, the mine collapsed. The nearby people came rushing up to go help and noticed that there were people who were dead, and then there were just people not there. People were gone, and it didn't make any sense because, why aren't they in their homes or the schools? The place was empty, except for the dead bodies. Everyone else was missing.
So what the?
Yeah, they just disappeared.
And this is legit. This is a story.
Well, let me get there. In time, the buildings decayed and crumbled, and the earth reclaimed the land. Maybe the villagers should have heeded the warnings of the great spirits. Now, I only found a few places where I could find this, and what I realized is this was traced back to a book called A Guide to Haunted New England by Thomas
D'Agostino.
D'Agostino, thank you. I'm like, But that's
I've heard the author's name before.
But that's where the trail goes cold. So I tried to do research. I tried to discover, because if this is a guy who talks about real haunted places, I should be able to find something else, right?
You should be, yeah.
Other than what stems from his story.
Right.
I couldn't. So I looked up, I was trying to even find, because there's a place called the Copper Mine Trail in Franconia. And allegedly that's where they say along that trail was the village. But I couldn't seem to link things up. I tried to look up copper mines in New Hampshire, and there are a few. I seriously really tried to look. So I reached out to the New Hampshire Historical Society, but I never heard back. While I was trying to research this and figure out is this real or not, I kept coming across lost abandoned towns in New Hampshire and ghost towns, things like that. And it's this guy, he's a hiker, he's a photographer, and he's a blogger. And he writes about all this cool stuff, these like lost towns and different hiking trails. And I thought, maybe this guy will know. So I reached out to him. His name is Aaron Paul Donovan. And he has a website, scenicnh.com. And so I reached out and asked about it. Like, have you heard anything? So this is what he told me. He said the copper mine is supposed to be on Coppermine Brook, and he included a map from 1982 that he sent in the email, so I'll get that posted. But he said he's never looked for it. He mentioned a history of Franconia, New Hampshire by Sarah Welch, where she mentions that the mine is a draft or surface mine, and the deepest part was about 20 feet. But he said some of the information in that book was a bit off, so that possibly could be off too. He said as for mining settlements in Franconia, during the mining era, the bigger ones were called the upper works, and then there were the lower works. So, like, there's a map, and you can see, like, a couple on the map where it has, like, a little line. It's, like, the copper mine. But it brings into question, if it wasn't a deep mine, would it have such a big collapse if it was only 20 feet? I don't know. I don't know anything about mining. But it's just, I couldn't find anything solid to say, yes, there was a copper mine collapse. I was looking up like for historical documents of copper mine collapse in New Hampshire. I couldn't find anything. I found a document made in the early 80s, and it listed all the mining incidents that have happened in the United States, a lot in Pennsylvania. But it talked about fires, collapse, like all different things, and I couldn't find one on New Hampshire.
So, just based on that alone, I'm going to say it's a made-up story.
That's what it seems like.
It's a made-up story that Thomas D'Agostino made up for his book. That's if you can't find anything else, and every single time you find this story online, it circles back, and the origin point is that book. It sounds like this guy just made up a story to fill up the pages of the book. It's a great story.
Yeah,
but
it's a great story.
I can't say that it's legit or that any part of it would be.
Yeah, so it was kind of disappointing because I really wanted to find something. I wanted to at least say there was a copper mine that collapsed in that area, something, but I couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, that's it for me. Great story, cool, yeah. Fun to tell around the campfire, but it's, I would say, provably false. Because if you can only, if your origin point is a story that somebody wrote about haunted places in New England, then if he doesn't have any references in that book or where he got his information, if you can't find anything... I didn't
get the book, so I couldn't...
It's fair. I mean, fair enough. So...
I don't want to be calling people...
I'm not going to... No.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're lying. I just can't...
It sounds to me, if he, without looking at the book, if he... Or I should say without seeing the book, because we haven't seen it. If he doesn't put references in there of where he got his information or anything like that, I would say that he must have made it up. That would be my guess. I'm not saying it's for sure, but that'd be my guess. And the fact that you can't find anything anywhere else about anything that happened.
Maybe I suck at looking things up. I don't know.
Well, that's all of it. That's a possibility too. So
I used to think I was really good at finding things online.
So if Thomas D'Agostino was listening, or somebody tells him that she might just be horrible at looking stuff up. It's obvious, that could be a possibility.
If you have information for any of the stories we've talked about, and you can prove it, let us know. Yeah, absolutely.
That's the thing. I mean, something like this, there should be some kind of documentation somewhere. Now, granted, if it happened back then, there may not be as much, but
there's documentation on other mines earlier than that.
Well, for
New Hampshire, so that's why it's really confusing for me because yeah. I'm finding all this other stuff, but not this one.
We have no corroborating information that can prove that this could have.
And we've said before, we just want to know the truth.
Yeah, that's all.
Sometimes, it's just this is the closest we can find to it, and if people can bring forth New information? Yeah.
Great. But yeah, regardless, hell of a story.
Yeah.
Hell of a
All
story.
right. This is my last story. This is a really cool story, and it doesn't take place in New Hampshire. It takes place in Rhode Island.
So much for haunted New Hampshire legends.
I told you last week there's one from Rhode Island,
All right,
but
so
it's
here's
so
the
good
one.
I had to
Here's
share.
the one.
As I not go for your water.
That's fine.
This is the story of Mercy Brown, the last New England vampire.
Tremendous. Here
Are
we
you
go.
intrigued yet?
Well, you just said I'm intrigued. You got me with the title.
All right.
Let's hear it.
Back in the late 1800s, tuberculosis, which was also known as the White Plague, was rampant. Because of the slower rate for death to take hold, people stricken with tuberculosis would become pale and fatigued, and they would lose weight. They would have a cough, they'd get chest pains and night sweats. Some thought it wasn't an illness causing the slow, painful suffering. Instead, many Americans thought it was the undead feeding off the living, causing their victims to experience those symptoms. They thought these vampires were literally sucking the life out of their victims.
Huh.
Yeah.
All right.
America, yeah. Vampires. Someone called Buffy.
Wow.
Yeah. So the townspeople would dig up bodies of the recently deceased to look for signs of decomposition. If a body wasn't decomposed, they would determine it was a vampire and take the quote-unquote necessary precautions, doing such things as turning it face down in the coffin, cutting off the head, or burning the body. Often people would have those who were ill breathe smoke from the flaming departed in hopes to cure them. So they would burn the alleged vampires' bodies and make the sick people breathe in the smoke to try to heal them.
What?
For an illness that affects your breathing and your lungs, I don't think breathing in smoke would probably be the best thing. But, it's what they did.
Not only just smoke, but like
Dead people smoke?
dead person ashes smoke. Whatever.
Yeah.
That's kind of it. All right.
Moving on.
Yeah.
The Brown family from Exeter, New Hampshire became famous for being the main focus of a vampire hunt in the 1890s. George and Mary Eliza Brown settled into Exeter with their 3 children, Mary Olive, Edwin, and Mercy. I gotta say, I love that name, Mercy.
Mercy.
Yeah, that's a cool name. Mary Eliza caught the consumption in 1884 and died quickly. So for those who don't know, tuberculosis was also known as the consumption. It was also known as TB. There's a whole bunch of names for it. Her daughter Mary Olive, who was 20, caught it in 1888 and she died too. Mary's son Edwin became ill in 1890, but he didn't die like his mother or sister. But during this time, Edwin's younger sister Mercy, Lena, contracted tuberculosis in 1892 and she did pass away. And as George's family, he's the dad, as his family was taken down one by one, the people in his town began to fear the worst, that a vampire was preying on his family. While Edwin was sick, he moved to Colorado in hopes the climate would help his tuberculosis and cure him. He returned to Exeter in 1892 in worse condition, and after his return in January, his younger sister Mercy died at 19 years old. With Edwin growing rapidly sicker, his father grew more concerned and desperate. Many neighbors told George of the tales about the undead feeding off the lives of their living relatives. It seems while George did not want to give in to these old stories, he decided to have the bodies of his wife and daughters exhumed in March of 1892. While both Mary Eliza and Mary Olive, his wife and daughter, were but mere skeletons, Mercy's 9-week deceased body looked pristine and undecayed. and not in the same position they had left her when they buried her. Now, here's where the story varies a little bit. Some say due to the ground being frozen, they couldn't actually bury her in the ground. Some stories say she was buried. Some people have claimed to see Mercy walking the graveyard in nearby fields at night, but that was never mentioned until after they exhumed her body. So it was questioned, why didn't they say anything before? Upon Mercy's autopsy, the family doctor found fresh blood in Mercy's heart and liver, which led deeper into the fear that Mercy was a vampire preying off her family. While the doctor did state Mercy's appearance could be normal due to her passing during the cold months of winter, the townspeople disagreed and requested her heart and liver be removed and burned before returning Mercy to the ground.
What?
In a desperate attempt to cure his son, George mixed the ashes of Mercy's heart with water and fed it to Edwin. But sadly, it did not help, and he died a couple of months later. Mercy Brown was given the title of the last New England vampire, and to this day, people visit her grave, leaving gifts, jewelry, and even little fake vampire teeth. On a side note, apparently Rhode Island was known as the vampire capital of America.
Really?
How did I not know this? I lived in Rhode Island for a period of time.
I never knew that. No
This
kidding.
story is freaking nuts.
It's nuts because people were nuts. I mean, people are nuts, period. They're even crazier today, in my view, but that's insane. Like, what?
So I want to talk a little bit about this story because with some of the things going on, now what some stories said that she wasn't buried. The ground was frozen, which would make sense. If the ground's frozen, it's January, then okay.
All right, yeah.
But even if she was buried, regardless, if she's out in the cold, yes, it's gonna preserve her body a bit.
Yeah.
I guess the question is, like, they're saying it was in pristine condition. Well, we don't know. Like, I don't know if there was embalming back then. Like, I don't know.
I was gonna say, if they're taking out her heart and her liver, isn't that something that comes out when they embalm a person?
I don't believe so.
No?
I thought all your organs stay intact. That's mummifying. They take out all your organs.
Oh, okay. My apologies
That's
for not
okay.
knowing.
I could be wrong. If you know, let us know. But yeah, so that was kind of weird. Like, well, was she buried? Wasn't she? But if she's out exposed to the cold, yes, that could probably preserve her a bit.
Sure.
But to say, like, her body's in pristine condition, looking like she did the day she died pretty much, that's weird. But
Well, if she's frozen, I mean, maybe. I don't know. Okay.
But then, like, they're saying that her body was moved. It wasn't in the same position. But it doesn't say how. It's not like her hands were, like, on her chest or by her side. It doesn't say. I couldn't find that information.
That one, you can easily explain that one away. That could be people misremembering. I mean, remember, these people thought that if you breathed in the ashes of a dead person, that it would help heal you. So, I mean...
Well, depending on when people, like, I know that people can twitch sometimes. Like, there's electricity still in the body, which can cause twitching and movement.
Of course.
So, I don't know how long after she died she was laid to rest. Maybe if there was some kind of electricity in the body or something caused a little twitch that made her move a little bit. I don't know. But it doesn't say how.
But a little bit. I wouldn't cause, like, say, your arm to go from, chest to up over your head or something like that. And again, where it doesn't really give any specifics other than the body was in a different position. That could mean anything. Mm-hmm. And again, it could be just people misremembering.
Now, they're saying fresh blood was in her heart and liver. So, I have to question,
what does that even mean?
Didn't embalm her. I mean, it should have clotted. Blood should have clotted.
Right.
So it's not clotted, it's fresh, which makes it seem like it's flowing. I don't know. I'm trying to think, like, what are natural blood thinners? Like, is there something? I don't know. I can't really explain that. But they thought she was a vampire. But what's weird is, like, she was alive, and her mom died first of tuberculosis. So it's like, are they saying she was a vampire while she was quote unquote alive?
I don't know what they're saying. I think it's all. It obviously, to me, this is just a lot of people getting sick. They're in the middle of a pandemic, right? Like we are now. But they're just, I think they're obviously looking for answers. They're trying to figure out ways to justify what's happening, to explain what's happening. And obviously they're coming up with some pretty crazy theories and stories. And they're catching on because people are desperate. They want something to believe in.
Grief makes people do and think crazy things sometimes.
Of course.
Yeah?
Your mind's looking, you're in a state of distress. Your mind's looking for something to latch onto to have something make sense. And for us, we're thinking, it's freaking nuts. Like, how would you not know that this is obviously not what's going on? But
back then, they didn't have the education we have either. They don't have the resources.
And they didn't have the technology, all the the years of research that scientists and doctors have put into the procedures they have now. So it's kind of tough to say. But I don't know. I just think they were looking for something, and they found it in a vampire story.
I just think, how sad must that father feel? He lost his wife. He lost all of his children. He has like one son left, and his son's dying. And to be that desperate, it's so heartbreaking to like feel like the stories are crazy, but if I don't try,
what I want to know is what happened to George?
I don't know.
How is he not sick? How did he not get sick? But every single other person in his family.
Maybe his immune system is different.
Okay, possibly, but I mean I obviously am inquisitive. I'm going to question things.
I don't know.
Did he have something maybe to do with their death? Possibly.
I think they got tuberculosis. Maybe he was working all the time and wasn't physically near them as much. I don't know.
I don't know. Possibly. That's my question: is how come he didn't get sick if everybody else did?
I don't know. But from what I've gathered, I guess people would move when they got tuberculosis. They moved to sometimes different climates to try to help. But I thought it was warmer climates that they would try to go to help with tuberculosis. So I'm like, why is he moving to Colorado? Isn't it colder there?
I think it's elevation. Different elevation, possibly. Maybe he was in a warmer, one of the lower cities or something. I don't know. Another
interesting thing while researching this story I learned was apparently people would kind of mimic, they do their makeup the very pale skin to try to make it, I guess it almost became like a fashion thing, like having really pale skin to look like they had the consumption.
Kind of like how goth, is that even still a thing, goth?
I'm sure it is.
Okay.
But so no, that's, like that. I don't think it's not like that. It's like, it should be like very skinny and pale. I don't know. I read this and I'm like, I don't understand this. What am I reading?
Interesting fashion choice, I guess.
I don't know.
But again, this is the late 1800s, so.
Yeah.
But think about it, it was just a little over 100 years ago this kind of stuff was going on. It's crazy. Pretty scary that people actually were thinking like that.
A lot of Americans with vampires, it's like, okay. Part of me is like, interesting, like, okay, what do they have here? Like, what's the truth, you know? Like, maybe there is something to it. But at the same time, a story like this just makes you think people are desperate and they just want to find something.
Yeah, I mean, it's I guess now, over 100 years later, it's a fun story to tell. It's a fun legend, I guess. But I don't think Mercy was a vampire. I'll just put it that way. I think she was a girl who got ill, caught a disease that was spreading around that a lot of people were getting, and she just died. And the people, again, desperate for answers, desperate to try anything, desperate to explain away everything. Mm-hmm. This is the story that they came up with, and obviously it took on a life of its own.
I just realized our entire podcast today, the entire episode has been about death.
Yeah, it's kind of morbid. But it is October. This is the month of Halloween and scary stuff and what have you.
We need to end this on a positive note.
Okay.
You need something happy.
You got anything?
I'm always happy.
I thought your bubbly personality would help balance everything out.
Maybe it has.
Yeah,
I hope so.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, again, I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting that Rhode Island, of all states, is the vampire capital of America.
And all I can think of is the Lost Boys.
Yes, yeah.
That's all I can think
Yeah.
about. It's like, so is this kind of the Lost Boys turned it into a place in California instead? What is it? Is it Santa Carla? Is that the name of the town? The vampire capital
I can't
of the
recall.
world?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
But that's all I can think of is like the Lost Boys.
Yeah. Huh.
I didn't know that about Rhode Island.
Yeah, I had no idea. I think it's kind of funny people visit her grave and leave her vampire teeth. Okay. So there you have it, everybody.
I'm just like processing that in my head, like with what you're saying, and I'm like, this poor girl is just like, what the fuck?
How old was she again?
I think she's 19.
Okay,
She was young.
So yeah,
They
young.
were all young.
Very. Wow. Okay, well, thank you very much for all of your research that you did.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you definitely put in. I didn't know you reached out and heard back from the.
Yeah, I told you. I said, oh, the guy wrote back to me. Yeah.
Where was I? Was I asleep when you were talking to me?
I think you were in the kitchen when I
Right.
told you.
Right.
Because I've literally been like in the living room, sitting on the couch, like on the computer, researching things and calling people and emailing and.
I didn't know that he emailed you back a map and everything.
I told you. I said he even sent a map. And you're like, oh, cool.
You sure you were talking to me? The silence is deafening.
Obviously, I got up out of the living room. I was standing in the kitchen with you and I told you.
I must
And you responded.
have not been paying attention. I'm sorry. Because I'm sitting here, you're reading this off your screen. You're saying, I'm like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. That's news to me. I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. But apparently, I just wasn't paying attention when you told me. I apologize. All right. Well, on that note.
Alrighty then.
Okay. So anyhow, well, thank you very much for all the research you've done.
You're
And
welcome.
good.
I hope everyone had fun listening. And if you know these stories and you heard a different version of it, or you found something that says otherwise, let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. Reach out if you
Yes.
have any information about any of this stuff at all.
You don't have to be a jerk about it either. Like, I notice sometimes people online will get like pushy with stuff and be like, actually, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, whoa, we just want the truth. Give it to us. We can be nice and happy.
Are they that pushy?
Some people are terrible online, I see sometimes. It's like, wow.
Well,
I go by the motto, don't be a dick. I won't be a dick to you, don't be a dick to me.
words to live by.
Yes.
And
That's how you attain world peace, remember?
Right, exactly. Actually, I do have to say real quick for anybody listening, thank you for all the birthday wishes that I got. I only know that I got a bunch because I finally went on social media yesterday.
I told him.
Well, you told me about a bunch too, yeah. But I went on Instagram for the first time in months yesterday because you were having issues with Instagram.
Oh yeah, I
I'm
totally
like,
forgot to mention. I got, like, what? How can I word it? Like, Instagram won't let me like anything.
You got restricted. Your account was restricted for some
Yeah, I
strange
can't
reason.
like anything or follow anyone right now. So
censorship is real or something. I don't know.
it's for the protection or something.
Yeah, your account was restricted for some reason. So I went on to see. I wonder if mine is restricted or if maybe there's something going on with Instagram. I don't know. So I went on and I saw like all my notifications. I had a bunch of notifications and I saw all the birthday wishes. So thank you to everybody that wished me happy birthday. I probably won't be on Instagram again for a long time or Twitter. So thank you.
And shout out to our pal, Stephen Page. Because did you see the gifts he sent to Triple H after seeing your hair?
No.
I'll show you after, but yeah,
Okay.
he said some funny stuff. So
My non-hair?
yes,
my
his
hair is
non-hair.
gone.
He picked
Yes.
up on it right away.
Okay. Yes, I shaved my head after. I don't think I've ever had a shaved head in my life ever. So,
Well,
yeah.
when we met, you had long hair.
Yeah.
And then...
I had long hair for, almost 15 years, maybe?
And then
Around
last year, you cut it short.
I cut it short last year for the first time in a long time.
And then on your birthday, I was going to give you a haircut.
Yeah, I was just sitting down for a haircut and I said, just shave it.
Like, he was going back and forth, like, I don't know, what do you think? And I'm like, yeah, just do it.
At first I was like, yeah, whatever.
It'll grow back.
Just shave it. If it doesn't look good, I'll grow it back, whatever. Yeah, so I kind of like it. So
I
I'm
do
just
too.
gonna, yeah, and it's easy. I can wake up in the morning and I look the same as I did when
Don't
I went
have to
to
worry
bed.
about
I don't have to
messy
worry about
hair.
messy hair. I don't have to, yeah.
Should I do the same
Easy.
thing, just shave my head?
No, you look beautiful the way you are.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So don't shave your head.
Okay.
But anyway, so yeah, again, thanks to everybody that reached out for my birthday. I appreciate it. And if you want to reach out to us about anything that we talked about today, how can they find us on social media? I know we have a Twitter account.
At Homewrecker Pod.
What's our Instagram?
Homewrecker Podcast, but we can't like anything. We can't follow anyone, and I don't think I can respond to anyone right now.
So temporarily,
I can post, and
restricted
other
for some
people
reason.
can like it, which makes no sense.
It's kind of weird.
If
yeah,
you know anything about why this is happening, let me know if you can help.
yeah, please. Yeah, it's kind of weird. But anyway, and we're also on Parler.
Yes, at Homewrecker Pod.
And we have a website.
Homewreckerpodcast.com.
And you can watch us on YouTube.
You can be a watcher.
You can be a watcher on YouTube. Brighteon as well. And please like and subscribe to us on there. And if you're listening, please like. Well, you don't like podcasts, do you? Anyway.
You subscribe.
You subscribe, and then leave us a 5-star review if you don't mind. We appreciate it.
Some different podcast places you can do like a thumbs up or thumbs down or something, like depending on where you get your podcast from. So you might be able to like it, but if you can, like us.
Yeah, please, and thank you. And until next time, I am the Golden Greek, Galaxarion, with a shaved head now. And I've been joined, as always, by my beautiful, lovely, gorgeous, amazing trophy wife, Monique.
And you've been listening to the Homewrecker Podcast.